If we're hunting for Alexander's tomb, how do we know what we're looking for?
Well, there are several types of evidence. In the first place, we have accounts from ancient writers, and this would be an example here. This is the account by Diodorus Siculus of Alexander's tomb, and that's written in about 50 BC. In the second place, we have what's effectively archaeological evidence from an array of ancient engravings and antique maps of Alexandria. That's important because the modern city has sealed over the ancient ruin field, and most of the ruins that did exist up to a couple of hundred years ago now no longer survive. Finally, there are some word-of-mouth accounts from the citizens of Alexandria from a couple of hundred years ago. An example would be this book, written by Edward Daniel Clarke, which records some word-of-mouth stories about some artefacts, including a large cistern, which may have been a sarcophagus used for Alexander in the city of Alexandria.
But can we even say what it looked like?
Well, there are a couple of eyewitness accounts from Strabo and Achilles Tatius, and also from Diodorus, and these people speak of an enormous enclosure. They say it was of a size and grandeur worthy of the glory of Alexander, and that it was located at the centre of the ancient city, possibly at the central crossroads. Then, within that enclosure, there would have been a mausoleum. That's mentioned by Lucan, a mausoleum with some kind of pyramidal roof on it. And beneath the mausoleum there would have been a tomb chamber, and within the tomb chamber the actual corpse. And we know that it was originally kept in a coffin of hammered gold, shaped to the body like a mummy case. And then subsequently one of the Ptolemies stole the gold in about 88 BC and replaced the sarcophagus with one made of some kind of crystal or glass material.
Do all the clues agree on where the tomb lay within Alexandria?
Well, in fact, they've been believed to be contradictory. The account of Strabo talks about the tomb being located in the palace region of the city, whereas that of Achilles Tatius and Zenobius are suggestive of a location near the central crossroads. This has led to a proliferation of theories, some of which agree with one of the ancient writers and disagree with the other of them, and vice versa as well. So these theories disagree with some of the evidence, and of course they all disagree with one another as well.
Is any convincing solution possible then?
I think there might be a unique way in which we can reconcile all of the ancient evidence in the context of what we know about the ancient city. For this purpose, the best evidence comes from this map by Mahmud Bey. It was drawn up on the basis of excavations by a team of over 200 workers in the 1860s, and he identified the street grid. You can see the streets running from east to west and the streets running from north to south as these red lines. And in particular, he identified two streets that were wider and grander with more columns than the others, and that's this one here and this one here, and that they intersect in a central crossroads just here. And this map is, I think, key. What we have then is potentially the central crossroads mentioned by Achilles Tatius here as a location for the tomb region, but Strabo located the tomb in the palace region here.
I see the problem. There's a bit of a gap between the two places.
Yes, but I suspect that there might be a way of reconciling that problem. This black line on the plan here and running all the way around here is the line of the medieval walls, which still existed above ground when Mahmud Bey drew up this map. Now, in their eastern section we have this huge salient running out here. Now, my idea is that this eastern salient may be the incorporation of the ancient enclosure of Alexander's tomb into the course of the medieval walls, because it was the most convenient line to take. Now, if that's the case, then because this salient is 600 metres from north to south, it brings the northern edge of the enclosure into contact with the area of the palaces, and that reconciles the Strabo evidence with a location at the central crossroads, because the enclosure can be seen as a continuation and indeed part of the royal part of the city.
Is there any evidence for such a huge ancient enclosure?
Well, indeed, there is some tangible evidence for that. I'd show you this engraving in the first instance. This shows the Rosetta Gate, the eastern gateway in the medieval walls, and therefore potentially the eastern gateway of the ancient enclosure. And what you can see is that in this engraving drawn in about 1792 and published in 1801, you can see that you have an ancient looking gateway with Corinthian capitals on the columns to either side, and also there's a statue niche to one side. And because we know that the Arab people who took over Alexandria in 642 AD, it was banned to have statues of human beings in public, we can infer that this whole structure is older than the medieval period and actually ancient in origin. Not only that, but there's actually a section of the ancient wall, huge blocks which look like a piece of wall that was constructed before Christ, that exists 200 metres north of the Rosetta Gate, but also in the line of the medieval walls in their eastern section. So indeed we have evidence for three sides of this enclosure.
Would that be the enclosure of Alexander's tomb?
Well, if it is a large ancient enclosure near the centre of ancient Alexandria, then the only such structure we know about was the enclosure of Alexander's tomb.
Would it be possible to excavate to prove or disprove this theory?
Well, indeed, this theory is particularly nice because it's susceptible to test. Because if you look at the line of the medieval walls, there's a small zigzag in this region here, and a short section of a wall running diagonally down here, which looks as though it's the remains of the fourth side, the western side of the enclosure. So if you were to excavate in this region here and look for foundations of a continuation of that wall, and therefore the fourth wall of the ancient enclosure, or even just an empty robbed trench for such a wall, then that would prove the existence of a complete enclosure there in ancient times, and be tantamount to a proof of that as the location of Alexander's tomb.
Sounds fairly straightforward. Let's hope a dig can be arranged.
Yes, indeed, that would be very exciting. In the meantime, details of the theory are in my book, The Quest for the Tomb of Alexander the Great, which is available through internet bookshops and can be ordered through ordinary bookshops. Or come back and see my website at www.alexanderstomb.com.
Thank you.